Picture this. It is late at night. The house is quiet. The lights are off, but your brain will not shut down. Instead of sleeping, you are replaying worst-case scenarios on repeat. What if your car breaks down tomorrow? What if your laptop dies? What if something unexpected happens and you simply cannot afford it? This is the reality for people living without savings, and it is far more exhausting than most realize. When you have no financial buffer, every small problem feels like a looming disaster. A routine car repair is not just inconvenient, it is terrifying. A medical bill is not just annoying, it feels like a threat to your entire stability. Even simple daily choices become stressful calculations. At the grocery store, you are not choosing food based on what you enjoy or what is healthy. You are choosing based on what will not break your budget. When friends invite you out, you hesitate. Not because you do not want to go, but because one dinner could throw off your entire week financially. This kind of financial pressure forces you into survival mode. Instead of making proactive decisions about your future, you are constantly playing defense. Your goal is not to get ahead. It is simply to avoid falling behind. One unexpected expense can wipe out weeks of effort, pushing you toward credit cards, loans, or uncomfortable conversations asking for help. Over time, this cycle quietly erodes confidence. You start feeling like no matter how hard you try, you're always one step away from trouble. What makes this situation especially damaging is how much mental energy it consumes. Living paycheck to paycheck does not just limit your money, it limits your thinking. When your brain is constantly scanning for threats, there is little room left for creativity, long-term planning, or personal growth. You are too busy worrying about getting through the next few days to focus on building a better future. And here is the most important part. This stress is not a personal failure. It is a predictable psychological response to financial instability. Anyone in this position would feel the same way. Understanding this is the first step toward breaking the cycle. If this feels familiar to you, comment the number 1 below so I know you are watching, and stay with me. Because in the next part, we will talk about what changes the moment you finally build a financial buffer and why everything starts to feel different. In the last part, we talked about what life feels like when you are living without savings. Constant pressure, constant calculations, always reacting instead of planning. Now here is where the story starts to change, and not in the way most people expect. The first real financial milestone is not $1 million. It is not even 100,000. For most people, the first number that truly changes how life feels is $10,000. And the reason has nothing to do with luxury, status, or buying nicer things. It has everything to do with psychological safety. When you reach $10,000 in savings, something subtle but powerful happens. You stop seeing every decision as a potential disaster. That financial buffer acts like shock absorption for life. Problems still show up, but they do not hit the same way. A car repair becomes a problem to solve, not a reason to panic. An unexpected bill becomes an inconvenience, not a threat to your survival. This is because $10,000 can handle most of the things that normally knock people off balance. Common emergencies like car issues, short-term income gaps, or surprise expenses usually fall well below this number. Knowing that you can handle these situations changes how your brain reacts. Fear and urgency quiet down. You're able to pause, think, and choose instead of immediately reacting. What is important to understand is that this safety net does not turn people reckless. Most people who reach this milestone do not suddenly spend more or live larger. In fact, many of them barely change their lifestyle at all. The real change is internal. It is the shift from asking, "How do I survive this month?" to asking, "How do I improve my future?" That shift is everything. When you are no longer dominated by short-term fear, you gain permission to think ahead. You can consider better job options. You can invest time or money into learning new skills. You can plan instead of constantly putting out fires. $10,000 does not remove all risk from life, but it removes the constant background panic that keeps people stuck. This is why this milestone matters so much. It creates breathing room, and breathing room is the foundation of every good decision. In the next part, we are going to look at what this kind of financial stability does to your stress levels, your sleep, and your ability to function day to day. Because the effects go far beyond money. Once you have breathing room, the changes do not stop at better decisions. They show up in how your body and mind function every single day, often without you even noticing at first. When money is tight, your nervous system stays switched on. You are constantly alert, constantly bracing for the next problem. Over time, that state becomes normal. You might not even realize how tense you are until the pressure finally eases. When you have real savings, that background tension starts to fade. You are no longer waking up already stressed. You are no longer carrying a constant sense of urgency into every small task. What this means in real life is simple. Everyday problems lose their emotional weight. A dashboard warning light is annoying, but it does not ruin your day. An unexpected expense is something you handle, not something you spiral over. That shift from panic to mild frustration might sound insignificant, but it changes everything. You sleep more deeply, you are more focused at work, you have more patience in conversations, and more energy left at the end of the day. There is also a hidden benefit that almost no one talks about. Chronic money stress consumes mental bandwidth. When your brain is busy running financial survival math in the background, there is less room for creativity, learning, and long-term thinking. Once that stress is removed, it feels like your mind suddenly has more space. You start noticing opportunities. You think more clearly. You stop reacting and start choosing. Over time, this mental clarity compounds. Better focus leads to better habits. Better habits lead to better outcomes. Relationships improve because you are more present instead of distracted by worry. Work improves because you are not mentally exhausted before the day even begins. If this part surprised you, do something quick. Pause the video for 1 second and take a breath. Then keep watching, because next we are going to talk about why most people never reach this point and the simple identity shift that changes everything. By this point, you can probably feel a pattern forming. Less stress leads to clearer thinking. Clearer thinking leads to better decisions. But there is one idea that really ties everything together, and most people completely misunderstand it. The true power of an emergency fund is not in spending it. It is in knowing it exists. Most people think savings are meant to be used when something goes wrong. And yes, that is one purpose. But the bigger impact happens long before any money is ever touched. The moment you know you can handle an emergency, your behavior changes. You stop operating from fear. You stop making rushed decisions just to make the stress go away. When someone has no savings, every problem feels urgent. That urgency pushes people toward bad choices. High-interest debt, impulsive spending to relieve stress, saying yes to situations they know are not right because they feel trapped. But when you know you have a financial cushion, urgency disappears. You can pause, you can think, and that pause is incredibly powerful. What surprises many people is that once they build real savings, they rarely need to use them for emergencies at all. Instead of putting out fires, they start preventing them. They handle small issues early before they become expensive. They plan ahead instead of reacting late. The emergency fund quietly reduces the number of emergencies that happen in the first place. This fund also becomes a foundation for opportunity. When you are not afraid of the worst-case scenario, you are more open to better possibilities. You might invest in learning a new skill. You might consider a career move that seemed too risky before. You might explore a business idea or relocation that you never would have entertained while living in survival mode. The money itself often stays untouched, but its presence changes everything. It shifts your time horizon from short-term survival to long-term strategy. It reduces impulsive behavior because you are no longer trying to escape stress in the moment. Confidence grows quietly, not because you feel rich, but because you feel secure. That is the real return on savings, not interest, not purchases, peace of mind. And once you experience that, your entire relationship with money changes. In the next part, we will talk about why so many people struggle to reach this point and the identity shift that separates those who build savings from those who never do. At this point, it should be clear that reaching $10,000 is not about one big sacrifice or a short burst of motivation. This is where most people get it wrong. They treat saving like a temporary challenge. They cut everything fun out of their life, rely on discipline alone, and tell themselves it is just for a few months. Eventually, that approach collapses. The people who actually reach this milestone do something very different. They change how they see themselves. Instead of saying, "I am trying to save money," they start thinking of themselves as someone who saves money. That may sound small, but it completely changes how decisions are made. When saving becomes part of your identity, you stop relying on willpower. You do not constantly feel like you are resisting temptation. You naturally notice unnecessary spending. You question habits that no longer serve you. You look for small ways to improve your situation without feeling deprived. Saving stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling normal. This is why the first $1,000 is the hardest. It requires breaking old patterns and proving to yourself that you can act differently. But once those habits are in place, each additional 1,000 becomes easier. The process starts to run on autopilot. You are no longer forcing yourself to save. You're simply acting in alignment with who you believe you are. As this identity solidifies, progress accelerates. You become more aware of where your money is actually going. You get more creative about increasing income or cutting costs without lowering your quality of life. And this mindset does not stay limited to money. It spills into other areas: health, career, relationships, long-term goals. In the end, the most valuable thing you gain while saving $10,000 is not the number in your account. It is the person you become along the way. And that person is far more likely to build lasting financial stability than someone who relies on income alone. Once saving becomes part of who you are, the effects start showing up in very practical ways. This is where $10,000 stops being an abstract milestone and starts changing how your life actually functions. From a real-world perspective, most financial emergencies are not as massive as they feel in the moment. Car repairs, home issues, unexpected travel, short-term income gaps. These situations are stressful, not because they are impossible, but because there is no margin for error. When you have savings, that margin suddenly exists. $10,000 is significant because it can absorb most of the shocks that knock people off course. Instead of reaching for credit cards or scrambling for loans, you can handle problems directly. There is no panic, no rush, just a clear decision and a solution. That alone removes an enormous amount of pressure from daily life. This buffer is what breaks the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. When you are living without savings, you are always one expense away from starting over financially. Progress feels fragile, but with a solid cushion, progress becomes stable. You are no longer building on shaky ground. You're building on something that can support weight. Job loss is a perfect example. For someone without savings, losing income is immediate crisis mode. Any job is better than no job, even if it is a bad fit. With savings, the experience is completely different. You gain time to think, time to search, time to choose something that actually moves you forward instead of trapping you again. That breathing room changes the quality of your decisions. Under pressure, people make emotional choices. They prioritize short-term relief over long-term outcomes. But when the pressure is reduced, strategy becomes possible. You can compare options, you can negotiate, you can say no when something is not right. This is why $10,000 is such a powerful stabilizer. It does not remove all uncertainty from life. Problems still happen, but it neutralizes the most common threats that keep people stuck. It turns chaos into manageable inconvenience and fear into planning. Once you experience this level of stability, it becomes clear why people who reach it rarely fall back into constant financial stress. They are no longer just reacting to life, they are responding with intention, and that is the foundation for everything that comes next. Once you are no longer trapped in constant damage control, something interesting happens. Your world starts to open up. This is where savings stop being defensive and start becoming offensive in the best possible way. When people have no savings, Fear quietly controls their choices. Even good opportunities feel dangerous. Spending money on a course, a certification, or a networking event feels irresponsible when every dollar might be needed for survival. As a result, many people stay stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they cannot afford to take even small risks. With a solid financial cushion, that fear loses its grip. $10,000 does not make you fearless, but it makes you rational. You can evaluate opportunities based on potential value instead of worst-case scenarios. An upfront cost is no longer automatically dismissed. It becomes a question. Is this worth it? Could this improve my future? This is how growth begins. People start investing in skills that increase their earning potential. They attend events where relationships are built. They explore business ideas on a small and controlled scale. These actions were always available, but without savings, they felt off limits. The safety net turns them into reasonable choices instead of reckless gambles. Confidence plays a major role here. When you know you are not desperate, you negotiate differently. You ask better questions. You're willing to walk away from bad offers instead of accepting them out of fear. This often leads to better outcomes at work and in business. Not because you suddenly became more talented, but because financial stability allows you to act from a position of strength. Over time, this creates a powerful feedback loop. Better decisions lead to better results. Better results reinforce confidence. Confidence leads to more thoughtful opportunities. Meanwhile, people with higher incomes but no savings often stay stuck in stress, making rushed choices that cancel out their earning power. This is why modest savings can outperform high income without discipline. Savings are not just money sitting still. They are permission. Permission to think long-term. Permission to invest in yourself. Permission to choose growth over fear. And once fear is no longer making your decisions, the direction of your life can change faster than you ever expected. By now, you can see that $10,000 is not just a number. It is a turning point. Everything we have talked about leads here. Before savings, money feels fragile. It comes in and disappears just as fast. Every expense feels like something being taken away. You're constantly calculating, constantly worrying, constantly asking if you can afford the next decision. That mental load shapes how you live, how you choose, and how you see the future. After you reach this milestone, your relationship with money changes. Money stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a tool. Instead of asking, "Can I survive this?" you start asking, "What do I want to build?" Everyday decisions become simpler. You no longer spend your energy questioning basic choices. You choose based on value, not fear. That reduction in decision fatigue is more powerful than it sounds. When you stop making survival-based calculations all day long, your mind opens up. You notice opportunities. You think more clearly. You feel calmer in situations that used to overwhelm you. Even small moments, like grocery shopping or planning a weekend, feel different because you are no longer operating from scarcity. $10,000 does not make you rich. It does not eliminate effort or guarantee success. What it does give you is breathing room, clarity, confidence, and proof. Proof that you can set a financial goal and achieve it. That proof matters because it changes what you believe is possible. Once you cross this line, the next goal no longer feels imaginary. It feels inevitable. You understand that wealth is not built in one dramatic leap, but through consistent habits and clear thinking. You stop chasing shortcuts and start trusting the process. The biggest lesson here is this: the transformation is not about the money itself. It is about becoming someone who is in control instead of someone who is constantly reacting. Someone who plans instead of panics. Someone who uses money to support life instead of letting money dictate it. If this video helped you see money differently, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next one. We will continue breaking down ideas that actually improve how life feels, not just how numbers look on paper. And remember, the most powerful change starts long before the balance hits zeros.